I got my mind made up. I cannot sit and wait for you. I got my mind made up. I cannot sit and wait for you.
What's up guys, it's Jake Lewis and we're back with another mixing video. And today I'm super excited to jump into this mix, which I completed the other day. I'm super proud of this mix, so let's just jump straight into it. We're gonna start off with dissecting the vocal. So what I'm gonna do, just mute all of the plugins. So the first thing we got, auto-tune of course, and then we got de-esser. For de-essers, I'm usually in the 4K to 5K region, like 4.5 to 4.7. Around that area is where I feel like most of the harshness of an S actually comes from. I used to think when I first started mixing, all the S's were super high up, like 8K, 10, 12, which, you know, it can be there, but majority of it is in this range, you know, 4 to 5K.
I cannot sit and wait for
like on that k, you're just kissing it a little bit, giving it a little love. And then next up, we got the SSL channel by Waves. And usually what I do with this SSL channel, especially as the first one in my chain for all vocals, I heavily shape the tone of the vocal and address all of the overarching problems that I hear with the vocal. So, you know, for example, this vocal right now, like without the SSL channel, is like pretty dark. It's very woofy. What I want to do is I want to brighten it up, but I also want to tame the upper mids, because I know as a result of, you know, making those cuts in the lower range and boosting the top ends, that the mid range is going to poke. So I want to tame that. So let's listen to what it sounds like with.
I got my mind made up. I got my mind made up.
See, that's already a big change. That's already brightening up the vocal, bringing it forward a little bit. So let's see what we did. Generally, I'll do the high pass around like 70 to 80 hertz. Then I'm boosting around like 10K. That's where a lot of the brightness of this is coming from. Taking out a little bit at like 300 hertz. That's where a lot of the whoo comes from that we don't want. And then everything below 200, I'm shaving off like 3 dB. And then after that SSL, we're going actually into another SSL by Plugin Alliance. We're kind of making a lot of the same decisions. There's some differences here. So it looks like I'm doing a boost, but this time I'm doing it around like 7.5K, taking out a little at 3.6K, and at 580 hertz, we're taking out a bit. And, you know, I've noticed like a lot of the low mids that we don't really like to hear are around like 600 hertz. It could be like between 500 and like 680 or like 700, but like that area is where you'll find a lot of unpleasant sound, you know? Taking out a bit at 260, and this is another region. I don't know if it's like the rooms I've recorded in or the mics I've used or what, but I feel like 220 to like 280, there's a lot of woofiness in vocals that I really don't like. It could just be a proximity effect thing, but either way, I like to tame this area, especially on like specific notes. When they get like in a lower register or they hit certain notes, it's just gonna poke out in that like 250 range. Let's see what that sounds like before and after.
I got my mind made up. I got my mind made up.
And then next up, we got the Virtual Mix Rack by Slate. And this is a preset I made. It's like my 4 favorite plugins that come in the bundle. And let's run through it. So I'm taking out 2 dB at 2.5K, more of that like the upper mids that get pretty harsh, especially once you start, you know, pushing the vocal forward with compression and stuff. Taking out 2 dB at 1.5K, softening things up a little bit, setting it back a little bit, taking out more at 600. And then we're running into their VCC channel. And this just drives it to give it color. Same with the London. The London is great because it adds like a very syrupy, thick, like low mid push that I think sounds great, especially on like my vocal here, because the song is pretty dark, you know, so I wanted to accentuate the low end in my voice. But they have other emulations here. They have Hollywood, which sounds great. New York sounds good. This I noticed like drives the top end of whatever you're putting through it, and it sounds really good, so it can brighten up a vocal. In this case, I went with the London. And then their de-esser, their FG de-esser sounds so good. This de-esser handles like a majority of the de-essing in like all my records, and it just sounds good all the time. So let's just let's do before and after.
I got my mind made up. I got my mind made up.
So then we got the Eosis de-esser. This is a go-to ever since my mentor Robbie Rowland showed me this. This de-esser is great as well.
I cannot sit and wait for you.
Great de-esser. And then we're running into the Tubetech CL1B by Softube.
I got my mind made. I got my mind made up.
Just controlling the peaks a little bit, going with like a medium release here. You can kind of even see with the needle and how it moves. It's kind of like, it's like dancing with the vocal, you know?
I got my mind made up.
And the attack isn't too quick because I do want transients to get through. I do want there to be impact when, you know, I start a phrase or, you know, in between words, like I want there to be an impact when I say something. So going with like a medium to slow attack and then like kind of a syrupy release, you know what I'm saying? It just felt good and it just kind of helped the vocal dance with itself more.
Can I sit and wait for you?
And then we got some more mid-range control, like upper mids, taking out a little bit at 2.1K and then dynamically adjusting 4.2.
I got my mind made up. cannot sit and wait for you.
And then we're going into the Pultec. This plugin is great. This is by UAD. I'm using their native version. This plugin sounds phenomenal, especially the top end. The top end sounds crazy when you boost stuff, especially with the broadband. They have a legacy version that I was using for a while. My mentor was like, dude, that sounds like cheeks, bro. Like you gotta buy their Pultec package because it sounds freaking great, dude. So I bought it and he was right as always. So I boosted this around like 3.5 dB at 5K. It pushes it forward. It makes my vocal more articulate. That's here.
I got my mind made up. I got my mind made up.
Pushes it forward so much. It sounds great. And then we run into Soothe.
I got my mind made up. I got my mind made up.
Especially on that I, when I first say I, when the vocal first comes in, it's really taming that like, that super harsh, like, you know? So Soothe helps. And then we got Fresh Air. And that just adds like a very, very subtle sparkle. It's like, it's not a lot. It's literally 1%.
I serve 25 to life.
But the thing is with Fresh Air, once you get to like 2 or 3%, you're getting kind of crazy. Like this plugin has a lot of impact. 1% may not on paper be a lot, but when you really listen to it, you can like hear the subtle difference. And that's really what, you know, mixing is at the end of the day. It's a lot of small adjustments that add up over the course of, you know, multiple inserts or, you know, just as time goes on, as you mix something, you know, those little changes add up. And then what I like to do is on vocals, I like to add one last compressor with a fast attack, a pretty quick release. And this is just to like set back the vocal and control it a lot, impart a lot of color at the same time, which is why I chose El Rey, because El Rey has, it's just so like silky and syrupy, and it adds like a low end that is really nice and real. It like sounds very authentic and natural. So that's just here before and after.
I serve 25 to life. I serve 25 to life.
Controls it so much, rounds it out, just sets it in its pocket. Those are all of the inserts really for the vocal. And now we can get into the effects. And the effects are where you can really like shape the atmosphere of a record and just elevate it really. So let's hear like before and after with the effects.
I serve 25 to life. I serve 25 to life.
Completely transforms the space. It just makes it sound like more of a record. So it looks like we start off with quarter note delay. So the Manny M delay is one of my go-to delays, really because it's like a one-stop shop. You have a bunch of stuff that's built into the plugin. You get, you know, reverb, distortion, a doubler, and a phaser. And then you get your high pass and your low pass. So you can get a lot of your sound from just this one insert.
I serve 25 to life. But I don't see what you.
And the purpose of this is really just to give something that's really far in the back and really only is audible when, you know, I hit certain high notes or get to a certain volume, you know what I'm saying? Where you actually can kind of barely hear it. And like, it just kind of kisses the speakers, you know what I mean? When I'm not hitting those loud notes or anything, you know, it's just kind of in the back. It's not like noticeable, but if you took it away, you'd be like, something's missing. It's just a little bit of atmosphere. That's really like the purpose of that quarter note delay. This is the Lexicon MPX native reverb, and it sounds awesome. There's a lot of great presets. If you don't have this plugin, I recommend.
I serve 25 to life.
The purpose of this one is to improve on the atmosphere, but really also add like body to the vocal. And you'll notice on the S1 imager, you can spread things out in the stereo field, or you can make them more narrow, so it's a little more mono, which is actually what I did with this reverb, because I didn't really want it to fill the sides and have it be noticeable in that way. I wanted it to actually be kind of behind the vocal and support it. And that's why I went with, you know, a pretty dark reverb. It's a great trick if you want to add a little bit of body to a vocal without doing it, you know, directly on the vocal with like an EQ. Next, we got a little slap delay. So this is a trick I've used like quite a few times to add dimension to a vocal. And what I'll do is I'll take a delay plugin, set it to ping pong, and set it to either like a 16th or an 8th note delay. And it adds a lot of cool dimension depending on how you EQ it and the volume and all that. So let's just hear what it sounds like. Let me crank it.
I serve 25 to life. But I don't see what you.
And what you'll notice with the delay too, while I was singing, the delay was actually being tucked back. And then when I would stop singing, the slap delay would come forward, you know what I mean? And that is what is happening with the R comp here. I have the R comp sidechained to bus 34, and then I have the vocal being sent to bus 34. So whenever my vocal goes through bus 34, that's what's triggering the compressor, and it's compressing it quite a bit.
I serve 25 to life.
Yeah, it's taking out like 11 dB, you know what I mean? That's the point of it, so that it's adding the atmosphere super tucked in the back, and then when I stop singing, it'll come out and be a little bit more noticeable. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. It adds an atmosphere, but it's just not in the way of the star of the show, which is the vocal. And then I'm also sending that to a reverb, which is even making it more atmospheric too. I'm sending it to a Valhalla. Let's actually crank that.
I serve 25 to life.
Oh my God, it's so much. It adds so much depth and character and stuff. So that's some sauce right there. And then we're running through a little plate verb. We got the MPX again. So let's hear what this is doing.
I serve 25 to life.
So the intent of this one was to be more of a top end heavy reverb. I was, talking to my mentor, actually. I was showing him the record and he was giving me some recommendations on like what to do. And one of them was, the record's really dark and, it needs a little bit of sparkle up there, you know what I'm saying? So the way I was able to achieve that was with a plate verb. So it added some more dimension, a little bit of width, and a little bit of brightness too. We have that reverb that was somewhere down here that was more, centered, and it was a more low end reverb to support the body of the vocal. And now we have a play verb that'll give it, some more sparkle and give it some more presence. And then there's some like fun little transitional effects that I'll show you too. One of my favorite ones is this Valhalla trick. I've been doing it kind of a lot on a lot of records, but I'll try to find a preset that is like crazy spacious and just almost alien-like, where it just sounds so gnarly. I'll take that and then, I'll tweak the settings a little bit to whatever the record calls for. And then I'll use it as like a throw. So like for this section, for example, I mean, come on, that's butter. And that just makes the transition into this like super dark, moody bridge just that much better. Oh man, it just dissipates into that section. For me, I like to try to create as many moments like that as possible, where it just feels so natural, it just feels so good. That the transitions are super important. And I do this Valhalla trick like a few times, I'm pretty sure. Let me see. Let me crank it just so you can like really hear it in an obvious way.
I got my mind made up.
It's so sick.
I cannot sit and wait for you.
And I was very conscious about not overdoing it because obviously, as you can see, like I love that. It sounds so cool, but I also don't want to overdo it in like an obnoxious way. I want it to be tastefully done to where it's not obvious, And I've been saying that kind of a lot with a lot of these effects. I feel like the purpose of effects is to not be obvious unless you take it away. In the context of like a song, like it shouldn't really be obvious. I mean, it depends on the effect, obviously, but these are just more like atmospheric. Unless it's a transition, like over here, like I raised the volume on the Valhalla send. That's because I wanted it to be a little bit more obvious. Whereas over here, I don't want it as obvious, but I want you to notice if it's gone, Now I want to show you this slap delay transition.
Reason.
That sounds so cool. I love slap delays like that where they just go on for so long and it makes it feel like time is frozen, you know what I'm saying? Kind of like Interstellar at the end, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, for this trick, I did the 1/16 triplet. I cranked up the feedback like quite a lot. And this is the repeater by Slate. I love this because there's a lot of really cool models in here that you can select from, and they all have really unique different sounds, which kind of takes the effort out of having to shape it with EQs and like saturators and stuff, because it's kind of all built in. I think it really adds to transitioning into this bridge portion. And then the one last effect I have is actually a half note delay, I believe. Yeah, this is sweet. Let me crank it up. Let me turn this up. And this is all done with the M delay. Again, subtle, but if it was gone, you would notice, And that's literally all the effects. So now we'll hop over to the beat section. Start with the drums. And I used Orion for one of the first times. I will say Orion is pretty dope. You cannot fake the funk, all right? It's pretty dope. Let's do before and after. I'll just go through and kind of disable all the individual modules and then enable them just so you can hear what they're doing.
I serve 25 to life. I serve 25 to life for you.
Adds a lot of that like that thump right in your sternum, you know what I'm saying?
I serve 25 to life for you. 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 But I don't see what you say, feel the tension in the room.
And it's really like not doing much. There's like a couple points in the record where the kick does actually cross a threshold. It doesn't happen very often, but I was really just using it to tame those moments where it goes over. Then we've got the bass. Spectre is where a lot happens, where I fill the low mids quite a bit. It just makes the bass pop out of the speakers more and just feel more alive. Those low mids are like super important. You know, the kick is like really like down here, occupying all this space. So it was important to have this bass, especially this like synthy bass, occupy this whole area. And then we have, you know, my vocal, which is occupying here. So like that's the great thing with how simple this song is as far as, you know, how things are laid out production wise. There's a space for everything. I think that's why the mix came together pretty smooth for me. Then we got the Pro Q. Down here, when the note slides down and it hits like 54 hertz, it's way too much. So I dynamically adjusted that. Then we got Soothe. And what I'm doing with Soothe is a Jason Joshua trick. So since all I have are the drums, like the kick and the snare together on the same track, what I did, I sent out via aux a copy of the drums to this track here. And then I'm cutting everything that is above 160 hertz. So this track is essentially only the kick now. And then I'm sending this kick out to channel 33, which is then going into the sidechain input of Soothe. So now this kick only track is triggering Soothe to to do its thing. So every time that kick hits, the bass is now ducking. So it's leaving space, leaving headroom. A lot of things can happen in the low end that gets messy and can just take away and eat headroom. So this can fix that. And then we got the vibey atmospheric sounds. So I really love the spreader in this plugin. I think the spreader sounds like really good. Let me just max it out. Again, it's super easy to overdo it. I just wanted to, you know, wanted to kiss it a little bit, make it a little bit wider. And then I set it to mid-side mode. So this is the sides. I drove a little distortion, or saturation, I mean. And let me just show you what it sounds like. It just adds so much atmosphere. You set it to mid-side and then just drive the sides. It's wild, especially with this kind of sound, you know? But then this side, you know, these are the sides and then these are the mids. What I did here was I actually did a huge boost at like 800 hertz, again, to fill that like those lower mids. It's just like this eerie ringing, and I love it. And now we can go to the Mixbus. All right, so I've never put Soothe on my Mixbus until this song, all right? I was talking to my mentor, like I was saying, and he was, you know, giving me some pointers on the record. He was like, yo, I actually had this engineer come through, and I saw him put Soothe on the master, and I was like, what the fuck? So he got the sauce, and really what it is a preset called Balance to the Grammy Awards. I'll do a little before and after with it. I feel like it just takes the edge off.
I serve 25 to life for you.
Like, isn't that kind of crazy? It like takes out the in my voice and like tightens up the kick, bro. It's kind of crazy. That's some sauce right there. Then we're running into the God particle at 70%. Then we're running into the Blackbox. I love this plugin. SSL Comp. Just kissing it, just kissing it. I've been loving this on my Mixbus. Aquamarine 5 by Acoustica. Super great, especially the saturation section. This like can really change the tone of your record. Let me show you.
I serve 25 to life for you. But I don't see what you sacrifice.
Especially the kick, bro. It completely changes like how the kick is interacting with the whole record. It's kind of wild. And then we got standard clip.
I serve 25 to life for you.
As you can see, I'm taking off like probably 1 dB. And then I'm driving into Ozone 11 Maximizer, baby.
I serve 25 to life.
Generally, on the limiter, I'm only trying to hit between 1 and 2 dB. Then we got the WLM meter just for metering.
I serve 25 to life for you.
Hitting a solid -8s, bro. I'm happy with this record. I think it sounds dope. I hope you liked it. And that is it for this walkthrough, this mix breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed. I actually live streamed when I mixed this record. It took like 3-ish hours. It's actually on the YouTube channel. If you go to my channel and click on the live videos, it should be there. If you have literally any questions, please comment them below. If you have any video ideas or you just want to like say what's up, feel free to comment. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Till next time, deuces.